Skole ngambulo luku. With whatever we do. Jioni safu nola. With whatever we do. Hale yidemu new school. Nyepamne nekudlukula. Nyepangiragala gena. Nyepamne nekudlukula. Ibuloke nungoto ni beti sola. Ibuloke dato ni betoto.
Bigi Congo.
Lamin.
Na?
Lamin te jibe norin te nyame Lamin.
Kama na wulo kono.
Wulo kono nyinte mo Lamin.
Pabilenki.
Muna ngata afamole.
Haina.
Ngata. Ngoto le. Fabrama.
Mingi. Baba nyola.
Ngoto le Fabrama.
Namu jumara kan kuma diten.
Fabrama.
Jumara mu.
Ndele bare muso.
Lunda mana.
Kamo kata.
Jamani mbere.
Alindo ko.
Jamani.
Bari ngoto man kontande.
Bari jamani fana na ramu do kontan.
Ngoto minaka ngala min je fon filitala. Lamin jibe nori nyala.
Lamin ida siran sama ne benki. Yala so tol sayni no ko mo lokku momo.
Ngoto.
Nam.
Iterinte yalo ne Lamin hakilo diata bake karamungoto. Anu santeng ministry ko di ngole si suwo ko amanke ko do holiday
si bitun
Bagona de nga.
ala ni ko kede namo balo
ala ni na ko na karta bulo be dam ala ni je
ngoto
nam
ngoto mon kontan fere
jamani mu nekata
ife ka Lamin ki wulo ko no nyintay mon ko do fete malo Lamin nyande sila la be la moy kala karango
jamani karamol be soron ne ko fasita wulo ko nako
karamol ma soron ni ko karamol soron da amanke comme holiday lem ngoto dini wonyanta sila la ala karango la moy yamen kamen fue man kontan andamande
alla nyin kombo courant adanda la kombo len do la jankara mol soron da do kam courant ma do la kombo e don dol fana na karam mol soron je karam mol soron Lamin ada lo ni no la aman tara fe na sokon ala mu nekela
Lamin ite foyde malon ko lesinol be ke kar radio to
Nga fine.
e ko nyani mo Lamin
Nga fine.
ya mu na fonye
bi kabim bina kan tambita nteri maning Fatu tambite la sukala ala diningol bebe siri be la moyka
faru danso am fana tambita jele ni subala la ngaje diningol be jet talanta nin kili warol e be seri jelet
sa Lamin fadante ku kili wo ke no la ba Lamin bitaka wulo ko no nyinta mo Lamin
aman dara fennela
ite dine ko ni man si yakaru lesinol la moy radio to e balon na
mu ne ka ke afonde ma nyara ni alon
telentel jikot
afonde ma mu be ke
ite balontel be jikritel ni man karambe ku kele yaje nata karana mbasa mala ya etarije
par ñarande kombo courant ho findira kombo ide na rajede ni sonka bay ko Lamin ma nyata la wulo ko karam mo be so da fa ne membe
ko to wole nati bayo ngalle ni Lamin kuntala kombo courant o ka fa me kombo courant asototal wala kinay ko e si suwo kono bari ni ko e si suwo kono be karangol di ke la radio lin telel to hani tele masoto to nyaay man tele soto la bongo bar radio be bulen ko to batiri sanga ay si ay alamo
sa do kala nyaadi
ko ta o bulaji
ado kala nyaadi
kamun ke nyaadi
radio abe wala mo la be mona falaje
ibe la karandirol kala jele
ti talle be radio ko men ka karam
il est subjecteur baby jele baby jele
wala nan ka coco moy fa dan se wolya ngombe tambi ka nga dindi ngol de be ikadum bungo de ko kala
mo a sototal de
Lamin mala be kara wala de
bari
lafta alal ideal on ko inde every year second wala fourth
muna ni ko di ha ko de ko folle sinila ba ndele sinilo ne ba
mba foke en koto wole fango yen wulindi yalo famo keta bat ñu fana bulata ko ko me yen nati jambi Lamin nyanta karana ndel be jiko be nyineka ya bulay kara wulo kono ta kilar ya bambalo yo be bulaje koto dindi ngoy si ayala le sino la moy radio
wara ka munda karam mo man soro Lamin nyanta kara si so na regular
si la ayala le sino
dal ko korno ko smalo
kilar ya
mo be ngala ko momo sa mbi do ni ko no kera
mengi bruzo
ndelo ko la da ba rosa no radio ba no bari woro radio ni abe jele ba do ngamra do man dembe buljan dala nyara nyar wo ko fendi mo la Lamin tayra ba rosa
bara te ku folo ajibe nori nya Lamin tamete ku
teku
bari ko do famo ke
ja image nañu ñambol si zol le keje kisgi man si zol no le kafun ka ñoma bari ñambu kino ni mañana ka finde ni nambe ko zol la ga
ngalle limbeta de be ñambo do dilanna
ñara nim ko ridin fennat ñara nata
bari famo ke da
ngata bungono tammi bungono ñara ngando ko fele ko ke e bar nganda ni pelo la ndija
iyo a
la bungono bismillah bisu diara
pendulala yefungo tanka sina dolu tanka koro korota
Hello viewers and listeners out there. Welcome to another lesson for the lower grades. It's your teacher, Mr. Jame, and the lesson is measurement, and what we are going to measure here is the time. And what about the time? What we're going to measure about the time is how to tell or read the hour on the clock, and also how to read half an hour on the clock. I think these are the two important things that I want you to note. Now, in doing so, I'm encouraging learners to get themselves prepared for the lesson as we get the message along. The first part of the activity that we will look into is telling the time. Now, this has become a problem to most of you, the learners, especially those of you in grades 1, 2, 3, and even the early grade, that's the nursery level. So reading the time is something that is very, very important to our daily lives, because anything that you're supposed to do has to do with what? Time. So the knowledge of telling the time is key in this aspect. Now, in telling the time, there are very, very important features about the clock that you need to know. And what are these important features? With me here is a clock face. Most of you have this in their households. Okay? Now, this is an example of a clock face. We use this clock face to read or say the time. And today's lesson is telling the time. So if you look at the clock face on the screen, it is already giving us an information about a particular time. So learners, be rest assured that by the end of this lesson, we should be able to tell the time. So with the time on the screen, who can tell what time is it on the clock? What time is it on the clock? Now, before you are able to read or tell the time on the clock, again, there are two important things that you need to feature or that you need to take note of that are found in the clock. And what are those two important things? The two important things here are, you can see two arrow lines inside the clock. What are those two arrow lines? These two arrow lines are very, very important because they will help you to measure the time accurately using the clock. How can you differentiate between the two arrow lines? Now, looking at the clock physically, if you have it in your homes, you can get it by your side. If you look at the clock physically, I mean, comparing the two arrow lines that you are seeing on the screen, by comparison, one of them is shorter and the other one is longer. So the shorter hand or the shorter arrow is used to tell what? The number of hours in a clock. The longer hand, which is the minute hand, tells you the number of minutes in the clock. Okay, so there is another one more, but I will not mention in this lesson, maybe in our coming lessons. But for today's lessons, I am just going to limit the knowledge to reading the time using the hour hand and the minute hand. I hope the learners are set for the session. Put the numbers in their correct places. Now here, for those of you viewing, if you look at the screen, we have numbers scattered all over the screen. the numbers are not in their right places, we are going to put them into their correct places. In doing so, I said we are going to start from the point I'm pointing at for those viewing, and we move that way. Can we do that? So we can start. So the number that's supposed to be here on the clock is 12. So we are going to put number 12 on this point there. So if you look at your clock face, you can see the clock face I have in my hand. The number there is what? 12. The next number that should come after 12, I said we move in a clockwise turn, is going to be 1. Can we put 1? That's 1 on the clock. The next number is 2. We have 2 on the screen. After 2, we have 3. Can we put 3? After 3, we have 4. Can we put 4? After 4, we have number 5. After number 5, we have number 6. After number 6, we have number 7. After number 7, we have number 8. After number 8 is number 9. After number 9, it's number 10. And the last but not the least is number 11. Again, I want us to compare these two and see whether what we have done is correct. By comparing the clock face in my hand and the clock on the screen, look at the number arrangement. Are they the same? Yes, they are the same. So this is how numbers are supposed to be arranged on your clock face. So I want students or learners to take note of this because it will help you to read the time correctly. If you miss these numbers, you will always give the wrong time when you are asked. I hope you will take note of that. We move to the next slide, please. Looking at the screen, we have 2 clock faces. I repeat, by looking at the screen, we have 2 clock faces. One on the left of the screen, and the other one is on the right hand side of the screen. Now, in each of the clocks, you are supposed to tell the time. We will do that together. But how are you going to tell the time now? Remember, in the previous slide, I told you that you need to understand how numbers are supposed to be what? Positioned in the clock face, which I believe must be understood by now. Now, since we can all see the numbers fixed in their right places in the clock, the next thing I would like you to do is, remember again, you were told something about the minute hand and the hour hand. To describe them using their length, The shorter hand is the hour hand, and the longer one is the minute hand. So here we are going to see how we can tell the time from the two clocks. The question to that is, what time is it? Write your answers in the box. We have two boxes under. What time is it? That's the question. Let's say these are two clocks, or let's start with the one on the left. You have a clock in your hand and somebody asks you, what time is it, please? How are you going to read the time? With the clock that you have on the left, the minute hand is pointing at what? 12, and the hour hand is pointing at 7. So to read this time, when the minute hand is pointing exactly at 12, it means the time is recording what? 0 minutes. I repeat, when the minute hand points exactly at 12, the minutes recorded is what? 0 minutes. Others will say it is what? They will mention the time and add the word sharp. Now we are going to tell the time from this clock. Remember, the shorter hand indicates the number of hours. The minute hand, which is the longer hand, indicates the number of minutes. Now, the shorter hand points to what? 7. So we can say the time is 7. Normally we put 2 dots like that before writing the number of minutes. Now, how many minutes do we have on the clock? I told you that when the minute hand points at 12, it records 0 minutes. I repeat, if the minute hand, remember I told you what the minute hand is the longer arm. If the minute arm points the 12, it records what? 0 minutes. So it means the time on the clock is 7 o'clock. So when people are emphasizing time of this kind, normally they will say the time is what? Sharp 7. Okay? Instead of 7 o'clock sharp. So here, the time on the clock is 7 o'clock sharp. That's what the clock face is indicating. So what time is it? You can give the answer to the first clock face as the time is 7 o'clock. Can we take it again? What time is it? We respond, the time is 7 o'clock. We move to the next clock face. Remember our question. What time is it? What time is it? Let's look at the features of the clock. The first thing I emphasize is check whether the numbers are written in a defined order. Are the numbers written in that order? Yes. The next thing I always ask you to look into consideration is the 2 arrow lines inside. Remember I told you something about the hour hand and the minute hand. I said by comparison, the hour hand is always said to be shorter and the minute hand is always said to be the longer. Now, if you look at the hour hand, it's pointing to what? 8. So it means to read the time on the clock, the time here is 8. And I said before you record the number of minutes, you put 2 dots like this. Now, to read the number of minutes, I told you if the minute hand points exactly at 12, we record what? 0 minutes. So to read the time on the screen, we said, what time is it? The answer should be, the time is 8 o'clock. I repeat, what time is it? What time is it? The answer is, the time is 8 o'clock. Or, like I said, others will say, the time is 8 o'clock sharp. The time is 8 o'clock sharp. Can we move to the next slide, please? Good. We have 3 clock faces on the screen. Still telling the time, remember, we have 3 clock faces. Now, what are we going to do about these clock faces? Before we can say anything about the 3 clock faces, I would like us to use our clock faces, if you have any in your household, and try to see how best you can locate the minute hand and the hour hand to show the 2 times that we just recorded in the previous slide. That is, showing the time as 7 o'clock and the time as 8 o'clock. Can you try that? The next activity I would like us to go through is to draw the hour and the minute hands. We are going to draw the hour hand and the minute hand on each of the clocks that we have on the screen. How many clocks can you see on the screen? There are 3 clock faces on the screen. In each of the clocks, we are going to draw or indicate the hour hand and the minute hand in each of them. To indicate the hour hand and the minute hand in each of the clock faces, the time is already recorded under each of the clock faces. So the time recorded or the time indicated is what you are going to use. The time indicated under each clock face is what you are going to take to make sure that you show the hour hand on the clock face and the minute hand on the same clock face. Can we take it together, please? In the first clock with the green color, we want to show the hour hand and the minute hand of the time recorded. What is the time recorded? The time recorded is 5 o'clock. The time recorded is 5 o'clock. Now, where are we going to put the hour hand? I repeat my question. From the center here, where are we going to draw the hour hand towards? Can we take it together, please? Now, since this is the center of the clock and the number of hours recorded is 5, we are going to draw the hour hand from the center towards 5. How many minutes did we record here. The time recorded is 0 minutes. And I told you that if the time or the minute hand points exactly at 12, it means the time recorded is what? 0 minutes. So here we are going to show that the minute hand should move from the same point, that's the center, to 12. So looking at the clock, we can read the time and say that the time is 5 o'clock, or the time is 5 o'clock. I believe we will understand the procedures or the steps I have taken in indicating the hour hand and the minute hand. Never make the mistake of taking the minute hand to point to the 5 and then the hour hand to point the 12. We move to the second clock. In the second clock, we have another clock face. What we did in the first clock must be the same thing we'll do in the second. That is by indicating the hour hand and the minute hand. So this time around, the color of the second clock is white. You can see the screen color. So we are going to make sure that we indicate this time. Who can read this time? What is the time? The time is 12 o'clock. The time is 12 o'clock. How are we going to show the hour hand and the minute hand in the clock face so that we can read the time 12 o'clock in the clock face? In this clock face, the time is 12 o'clock. So the hour hand should move from the center and then point to which number? It should point to what? 12. So we have 12 here. So this is how we indicate it. You can see it pointing to the 12. Remember I said it's always the shorter hand. And the number of minutes is also what? 0 minutes. And I told you something about the 0 minutes. If it is 0 minutes, it's going to point exactly at 12 again. So it means we are going to extend this up like that. And this can tell you that the time is 12 o'clock. Now we move to the next clock with the yellow color for those viewing. The clock face is completed with the numbers in their rightful places. The only missing thing there is, remember, we are asked to draw the hour hand and the minute hand to indicate the time recorded under the clock. And the time recorded here is 8 o'clock. The time is 8 o'clock. Now we are going to make sure that we indicate this 8 o'clock here in the clock face using the hour hand and the minute hand. Can we do that together? The time is 8 o'clock. I told you the hour hand always point at what? The number of hours. Here we are given how many hours? 8 hours is recorded. So we are going to make sure that from the center we draw the hour hand. Then the number of minutes recorded is 0 minutes. 0 minutes. Now, how are you going to make sure that you record 0 minutes on your clock face using the minute hand? Can you remember what I told you the last time? That the minute hand, anytime it points exactly at 12, the number of minutes recorded is always what? 0 minutes. So in this case, the number of minutes are 0 minutes. So the minute hand should move from the center to the 12. So this is exactly how you need to show the time for 8 o'clock. So if you look at the 3 clock faces that we have on the screen, the first clock, what is the time, please? The time is 5 o'clock. The time is 5 o'clock. Let's move to the second clock. In the second clock, what is the time? What is the time? The time is 12 o'clock. The time is 12 o'clock. In the third clock phase, what is the time, please? What is the time? The time is 8 o'clock. The time is 8 o'clock. So I think we have completed that activity. Now we are going to record the time on this clock. I want to say something about the minute hand this time around. Look at it, it's not pointing at 12 anymore. It is pointing at 6. Now, how do you tell or read the time when the minute hand points at 6? When the minute hand points at 6, we read the time as half past. Why half past? Because if you move from 12, turning that way in a clockwise direction to the 6, is going to read halfway of the what? The clock. And if you look at in between every two numbers, although we did not, or we are not going to discuss anything like that, the difference between every two numbers is what? 5, 5. So if you count up to where the 6 is, you will know that it's half of the clock. Okay, we will do that in the incoming lessons. All right. So in this case, to read this time, the hour hand is pointing in between the 3 and the 4, meaning it has moved from 3 now going to somewhere. Now to measure this time, it means we are still reading the time from 3 to some point. All right. So here we can say the time is 3. But is it 3 o'clock? I said no, because the minute hand is not pointing at 12 anymore. It is pointing at 6. And I said once it is pointing at 6, it means it is half past. So to measure this time, I told you that in between every two numbers, we have 5 strokes if you look at the clock. So if you count by 5, you will have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that will give us 3:30. Okay? So that's how we record this time here. So for the next clock, if you look at the hour hand, is pointing between the 6 and 7, meaning we have moved from 6 to some point. So the time will be what? 6. Then our minutes, remember the minute hand is pointing at 6. So we record 6:30, and that's going to be 6:30. So this is going to be the time for the two clocks. Now we are going to show the time on the clock, indicating the hour hand and the minute hand. The time is 2:30, written as 2:30. So we are going to show the hour hand from the center to Don't show it exactly on 2. It is going to be in between the 2 and the 3. Remember, our hand is going to be a very short arm. Okay? So now the next is going to be 2:30. So the 30 there represent the number of minutes. And I told you to indicate that you saw the minute hand pointing towards the 6. So we are going to make sure that we indicate the arrow line from the center to point to where 6 is. So this shows the time 2:30. We move to the next clock. The time is 7:30, also read as 7:30. 7:30. So we start with the 7. Remember, the time has gone halfway, so we are going to show our hand between 8 and 7. Remember, our hand is going to be a bit shorter than the minute hand. Then it is 7:30. The minute hand should move from the center to 6. So this indicates 7:30. Then the next clock is, the time is 5:30. That is 5:30. So our hand is going to be between 5 and 6. Can we indicate our hand to show 5:30? Is a bit shorter. So it's going to be between 5 and 6. Then the number of minutes is 30 minutes. So we draw an arrow from the center to point to the 6. And that shows the time as 5:30. So I think I will stop here for today's lesson until I come your way in our next class. Thank you all for viewing and listening.